Hey everybody, it's Natalie from Power Moon Tarot, and I just wanted to drop in with a quick video regarding what has been going on in the news recently in the astrology of it. And I've been wanting to do a video, even if it's just a really quick one, to talk about Saturn and Pisces again. And as we know, there's been like a major event that has happened in the United States in the last couple days, and there's been a lot of events that have happened all over the world in the last couple days, and this Mercury retrograde has really been delivering. And also Mars went retrograde too a couple days ago as well, just adding more power to the punch of what has been going on. Um, but for those of you that have been following the story of the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, who was gunned down in the streets of New York City, and you've been watching the reaction unfold online, it's been very interesting. And even like major, even though major news outfits have been, so confused. I don't know why the public is celebrating the assassination of this figure. Like they can't seem to figure out people's frustration with healthcare and why people are not crying over, major multimillionaires and billionaires losing their lives when they have been directly impacting the lives of other people in a very negative way. And so we see this story unfolding. And for those of you that, keep abreast of the news, or you're on TikTok, or check out news stories online and you read the comments have really been off the hook and off the chain. And it's been interesting to see. The last time I feel like we really celebrated as a nation billionaires kind of going down in flames was when we had the submarine accident that happened when the submarine imploded back in June of 2023. And those billionaires went down to the bottom of the ocean and paid, $250,000 to go do that. And then the submarine was being manned by like somebody who had no idea what they were doing, and the submarine imploded and killed everyone on board. But there was like a stretch of time period where people thought that they were just kind of like running out of oxygen down there in the ocean. And I'll forever remember that submarine event as a Saturn and Pisces event because it happened on the day that Saturn went retrograde in Pisces in June of 2023. So that is just wild when we start thinking about, the symbolism of Saturn and Pisces. And one thing that I had pointed out in an earlier video, and for those of you that are interested in my take on world events, or my take on politics even, or mundane events, things like that, I have a video called What the French from several months back where I was talking about what was happening in France actually. And I did a segment on Saturn and Pisces talking about kind of who's responsible for this chaos. But I also talked about Saturn and Pisces as being like an expression of showing no mercy. Now, Saturn is a planet that tends to deny things. So even if you look at like Capricorn, the sign for Capricorn, the glyph associated with Capricorn looks like the word no. And obviously Saturn rules Capricorn, but there's a thing about Saturn where Saturn likes to say no to things, or likes to, reject things. Kind of like when we think about, well, sometimes even like with the South Node, it's interesting because in Vedic astrology, the South Node is more akin to Mars and the North Node is more akin, but Mars is very fierce in rejections as well, right? So you think of this expression of Saturn as saying no to things in a very fierce way, or not allowing something to happen. So if you think of a sign like Pisces, when I did that video a couple months ago, I talked about an expression of Saturn and Pisces as being the expression of no empathy, or no mercy, actually, is what I said. I didn't even use the word empathy. I said Saturn and Pisces as an expression of showing no mercy, and how, we as a society need to find ways to show mercy to people who need it and who need help and need assistance. But Saturn in Pisces can definitely, on a mundane level, be functioning as a no mercy. We're not giving you any mercy. The compassion well has dried up. Saturn is a planet that is cold and dry, and it has a tendency to dry up. For those of you that have like a very heavy or overactive Saturn in your chart, some people that do may struggle with like constipation, which of course is like the soaking up of all the water in our system. And then, it's hard to move the good old bowels, right, folks? But anyway, not to get graphic, guys, but Saturn in Pisces, so we could see this drying out of tears, right? And if we think of Pisces, Pisces is a very cold and moist sign. And Pisces is generally known for being very merciful. Now, not always. I like to point out that Osama bin Laden was a Pisces. So, we're not everyone's like a merciful Jesus figure that's a Pisces, right? And some people truly are like twisted, weird gurus, or people that are just really into chaos and don't really understand and mess other people up. I mean, that's a very Piscean type of thing in the negative sense. But when we think of Pisces in the positive sense, Pisces energy is very, on a positive side, would be very compassionate, merciful, caring, empathetic, compassionate. But when we put Saturn in the sign of Pisces, we get like a denying of emotion, and we get like a denying of empathy. And the thing is that all of these transits at this moment are actually working together, and it's grinding out the gears of something we've never really seen before in recent history. Now, we can go back to the French Revolution, we can go back to the Industrial, revolution. We can go back in time and find times when Pluto was in Aquarius and go, okay, great, and learn those lessons. And they are really good to learn, but there's also something really unique about the times that we're in right now. And as these Mercury is really bringing the message through in a really hardcore way. And we just had the Mercury Cazimi the Sun. We've got Mercury opposing Jupiter. We've got Mars, basically on the fringes, on the fritz, just having gone retrograde opposite newly minted Pluto in Aquarius. So all of this energy is actually popping off, and it's all working together. But I am going to start by focusing on Saturn and Pisces and that element of we don't have any tears left to cry. We don't have the empathy well has run dry. We are out of fucks to give. And I think that it's really interesting the way that people have, it's not surprising to me, but it's very interesting with Saturn and Pisces and reading some of the comments, because I am on TikTok. I don't have a whatever, like a channel on TikTok or my own whatever, but I'm more on it more as a passive observer to see the trends and see the news and see what's happening. And I've seen some of these posts about the assassination of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, and people are celebrating. And the comments are unhinged in a way that I have not seen since that submarine went down in the ocean back in June of 2023 when Saturn went retrograde. Now, it's worth knowing that Saturn just went direct on November 15th. So Saturn is newly direct, and Neptune actually just went direct yesterday. So, a lot of this coming out about this kind of, I just think the no mercy or the denying of mercy, or we don't have any tears left to cry, is just such a poetic expression of Saturn and Pisces. And of course, it is going to be poetic because it is Pisces. And, the comments, for those of you that saw the comments, I wrote down some of the comments and they were like thoughts and deductibles. They were like, my basically saying a lot of the comments were incredibly clever, talking about like, I tried to care but my care got denied, or I tried to have empathy but it was out of network, right? My empathy is out of network. Meaning like tough shit, to this guy, but sorry, we don't feel sorry for you. Sorry, not sorry, we don't feel sorry for you. And yeah, the comments, I mean, have just been blowing my mind, like in a positive way, but it's like, wow, this is really interesting. And we've even seen like people kind of like in the chaos of it all, we've seen people kind of coming together and people wondering, like, okay, is this the example of like a revolution that is kind of starting in this country? And I think it's interesting, but this whole thought of I have no empathy, I don't care, my thoughts and prayers are out of network, my empathy is out of pocket, and you don't meet the deductible, so you do not get my sympathy. I mean, really, some of the comments have just been totally unhinged. And I have to say that I am here for it, but it is very, very interesting. So that piece to me is very Saturn and Pisces. I've run out of empathy. I don't have a fuck left to give. The part that really came up and shocked me, like that I really wasn't anticipating, was basically just how hardcore Pluto was going to show up in Aquarius. Because we've had a couple transits already of Pluto and Aquarius, and yeah, certain things were coming up, social media bans, new AI and all kinds of stuff. Aliens are more being talked about, that type of stuff. Aquarius is oftentimes associated with, like AI and technology and just forward progressive, socially forward progressive technology and stuff like that. So none of that was really, and because it's Pluto, there's definitely like power struggles with the social media bans and things like that have been popping off in some other countries. And like Australia just banned social media for for those 16 and under. So I mean, there's these types of things that are going on that are like very Pluto and Aquarius, that you're like, okay, they're trying to regulate the internet, they're trying to overpower, or this type of thing, and it's quite expected. The piece that I was not prepared for at all was the revolutionary aspect of it. And with the assassination of this individual, it has really, and some people are saying like we're waking up to class consciousness, or we're finally understanding it's not left versus right, but it's up versus down. There's just a lot of, and I know we're a long way from uniting on anything in this country, but there was like a spark that ignited. And this is, I feel like, going, if it turns into something bigger, this moment is going to be studied in the future by astrologers 100 years from now about look at what started this whole Pluto and Aquarius era. Look at what was popping off. And I was not prepared for the intensity of how hard it was going to go, because within a couple days, we had Mercury retrograde opposing Jupiter. We had Mars getting ready to retrograde. We had, Saturn in Pisces. We have all this going on, right? But I just wasn't ready for it. And it's not just in the United States. It's very, very clear that I should mention that, because it kind of started off, I noticed, with a news story that happened in Georgia, not the country, not the state Georgia, but the country Georgia, where they were fighting back against an election that they didn't feel was fair against Russia. And so we saw this thing pop up with Georgia and people protesting and holding their ground. And then we within a day of that news story, there was a news story in South Korea that popped up where the president tried to institute martial law right before a Mars retrograde. It's like, what are you doing? You're trying, you're doing, and it got overturned like within 24 hours. And it was like certain people that bravely stood up and blocked it and did things to stop it, which really is that Mars and Leo energy of needing to be brave and stand up for something, and maybe even having to put your life on the line for something. And I think that, so there's been like multiple things. I just read a story today in Syria about how Assad has been kicked out of Syria by the rebels. And it's just like story after story, and the rebels, right? And Pluto and Aquarius, we think of that Aquarian energy, is that very rebellious, hell no, I won't go. And that Mars and Leo energy of attack, attack, attack. And yeah, and it's intense. It is really, really intense. And it's not just in the United States, but you can feel these conglomerate of stories popping up all over the world. And you can see, and I know I was very inspired by watching some of these stories in other countries where, and I don't know anything about the situation in Syria to know if that's a good thing or if the rebels are actually good. I don't know. But what I do see is I see people um, changing things in a very intense way. And you also see, in some cases, just regular citizenry doing things to show that we as a mass, or we as a public, will not be, we will not keep submitting to this shit. And I have to say, like, it's been an exciting, but also terrifying, um, multiple days of news stories coming out in the churn and burn. And of course, mentally, I've been very interested in watching it all play out. And I've said time and time again that if you love astrology like I do, one of the most like compelling reasons to stay alive is to watch this astrology play out, because it is like, whoa, this is, and you can tell. I just, there's that surprise aspect coming through with Pluto and Aquarius, that energy of revolution, or the rebels taking over, or people randomly stepping in and coming together as a community to like fight the power. And it's like, woo, this is like, this is really starting off, and this is just the beginning. We have 20 years of Pluto and Aquarius, and yeah, some of it is going to be shitty, I'm sure. It's going to be, people trying to take control of the messaging and take control of ideas, and dark shadow communities coming to the top, and maybe even a reintroduction of more cults as we see like fixed belief systems like either crumbling or rising up. And, it's gonna be intense, right? But there also is this other aspect to it that we did not get with Pluto and Capricorn. We did not get in that type of way. Now, yeah, there were certain things that happened that showed little glimmers of hope, but I mean, we just didn't, it just wasn't, it was more about having to work in the structure that was given to you and find a way to build within the structure that was like purposely forcing you to be in that structure. And we have such a rebellious turn of tide with the sign Aquarius, and we have people thinking of things in a new way. And, one thing that has kind of like struck my mind post election, post the election of Donald Trump and all of that, is that Trump essentially ran his campaign on the same ideas that he had in 2016. Tariffs, immigration, whatever. It's the same crap. It's like there's no new ideas, or there's no new inspiration. And I feel like with this Mercury opposite Jupiter, it's kind of opening the way for more stories of bigger ideas or bigger ways to look at things. And it's opening the way for our minds to see other possible avenues that could be occurring besides just the same old crap that we already tried in other years. And, I think it's frustrating because if you are going to come forward as a leader or you're going to try to lead something and you have no new ideas and you have no fresh ideas and you're just essentially doing the same crap as before, it's old. It's played out. It's an old playbook. And what I like about Pluto and Aquarius is I like the uniqueness of it and the willingness to do things in a different way. And, because it is opposing Mars, we're seeing a very violent aspect of that right now. And hopefully in the future, it doesn't have to be a completely violent act that, brings about it. But at the same time, we're going to be having many over the next 20 years. I mean, Mars, it takes about 2 years for Mars to transition through a sign. So we're going to have, 10 plus oppositions of Mars in Leo opposite Pluto. Now, Mars isn't going to be retrograde every single time, but we are going to be having Mars Pluto oppositions in this configuration, 10 times over the next 20 years. So it's like, yeah, this energy is going to come up and it's going to repeat itself. And from this point forward, we're going to remember the feeling of what it was like when it started. And my, oh my, did it pack a powerful punch. It really did. I was like watching the new breaking news, like every single day. And every single day it was some wild story. And it's like, whoa. And this Mercury retrograde has also been really, really feisty, much more feisty than what maybe I even gave it credit for. And sometimes even as astrologers, like the energy of what's happening just is completely, with the intensity of it, is quite shocking. And one thing that I had called out, okay, so in 2023, I did my yearly forecast for 2024, okay? So it was November of 2023 and I did a full year forecast for all of 2024. And when I got to November and December of 2024, I was talking about journalism in the media and, some weird shit going on with journalists or some not so great things happening with journalists. Now, I think it's interesting because, and the reason why I said that is because Gemini and Sagittarius, we have Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Gemini. They're in an opposition to one another. Now, if I saw that configuration natally in someone's chart, I would say, wow, do you really like studying? Do you like learning? But do you have a problem focusing your attention? Are you into broadcasting? Are you into media? Are you into journalism? Do you want to start a podcast? How do you get your ideas out into the world? How do you galvanize your ideas and your presence out into the world? Because it's obviously really important to you. It's definitely like Sagittarius and Gemini are two signs that are very definitely associated with the spreading of information and the assimilation of information, and also the reporting of information or the written word. Like somebody who has a strong Mercury Jupiter aspect may, especially in Sagittarius and Gemini, may be a teacher, journalist, reporter, writer. Okay, so I'm just telling you where I got that prediction from and why I came to that conclusion. But I thought, wow, it's Mercury's retrograde. We have the opposition. Jupiter's retrograde at the same time, squaring Saturn. It's going to be kind of a mess. Okay, but what I thought is something material happening with reporters. Now, one thing that I think has been going on, and I don't know how other countries have been viewing it, and please, if you're from another country, please weigh in. But I think one thing that has become abundantly clear to everyone in the United States, I don't know of everyone, but I think it's pretty much, brought home to everyone. As a result of this assassination, Mars opposite Pluto, right? Triggering the Pluto and Aquarius, it has become obvious the way that the journalists in this country are just out to lunch in a way that is so bad. Like, it is literally bad. And I'm talking about CNN, ABC, MSNBC, Fox News, like all of them. All of those major news stations have their heads up their asses. And, we started noticing it earlier with them gaslighting us about the economy and the prices of things and walking around with their heads up their asses. But, it has really, like, this Mercury Jupiter opposition has really, really, at least for me, highlighted where journalists are literally on the fuck up train and are not coming back. Like, there are certain news outfits, which there's very few, and most of them are independent news outlets that have actually gotten the pulse and the tenor of what's going on in the country. Like, some of them are wandering around like complete morons with their heads cut off. Like, oh, I don't know why everyone is so upset. I don't know why everybody has such a, why everybody is so happy that this happened. I don't know why everybody is cheering and, feels like this is a win for the little guy, right? I don't know why people are feeling like this. This is so, bad and wrong, and I have no idea what's going on. And it's like, okay, come on. Like, you are not, like, get your IQ out of the gutter. Like, your IQ is literally not like 15, right? Like, your IQ has to be higher than that. You can figure it out. I think these journalists are playing dumb, and it doesn't matter if it's right or left. That's the thing. And maybe I'm just like the slowest person in America, but but this this event and what's been going on in this retrograde of Mercury opposite Jupiter in Gemini has really shown me that none of these ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox, none of them, right or left, they do not understand what is going on. They are completely out of touch, and they are faking it. They are lying. They are gaslighting people. And it's like, yeah, this is not good. And perhaps I feel actually probably this has been going on for a long time, but it's just become blatantly obvious after this whole events of the last week. It's like, no, they are really, really biased, and it doesn't matter if it's left or right. They're all horrible, really and truly. And they should be ashamed of themselves. I think there was like one guy who wrote a story in the Rolling Stone, and I think eventually some of them picked up on it and ran stories on it, but their initial reaction was like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Why is everybody acting this way? And it's like, oh, give me a break. So I think that there is a lot going on with that right now. And actually, I did hear a story about on MSNBC. There is a duo, Joe Scarborough and Mika, whatever her name is. They are like a joint unit that does like a morning show on MSNBC. And what's really interesting is right before Joe Scarborough, right before this Mars retrograde and during the Mercury retrograde, had a major meltdown on air because people were accusing him of being a coward for going to kiss the ring, so to speak, of Donald Trump. And he went on camera with Mika and basically had like a total meltdown. And like a lot of people picked up on it, and a lot of people were very like, what are you saying? What are you doing? So I do think a lot of these journalists are like self-destructing, and I think they are writing like their own demise, if you ask me. And I think a lot of them are saying like way too much. And you can tell like the Mercury in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter in Gemini is an invitation to get sloppy, talk too much, and reveal too much of your position, and then get backed into a corner. And I have to say, it's very compelling when you want to um, like bury someone else. It's very compelling to when you are acting out of anger and you're wanting to bury someone else with the facts. It is very compelling to overreach and do more than you should. And I will say that even me personally in my own life, I fell for it. And you would think that I would know better because I am an astrologer and I know that Mercury's retrograde. I know it's opposing Jupiter. I know it pays to shut your mouth right now. Unless you are going to go to bat in a really aggressive way and you need to stand up for yourself, there's then that's a different situation. Then maybe you do need to be outspoken and you do need to lay the truth out on the line. But maybe people are getting into useless power battles that go nowhere and it ends up damaging everyone around them. So it's something to be careful about right now because honestly, I was even out grocery shopping today and I could just feel there was like a lingering rage in the air, and people are starting to get into the Christmas spirit, I feel like, which also puts people on edge. And there's reminders of Christmas everywhere. And I was in the grocery store today, and the prices were atrocious, and everyone was not in a good mood. I'll tell you that much. And I do feel around this time of year, people do get really strung out and on edge, and it's going to be tempting to want to lash out and read someone their rights and all of that. But if you have to do it because you need to have a backbone in this situation and stand up for yourself or others, yeah, go for it. If it's just going to create more drama and chaos, then maybe stay out of it, right? And it's hard to know in the time what's worth fighting for and what should just be put to bed. Personally, sometimes in our own lives, right? Because we can get very triggered, realize that we're inside of a trigger, but still want to pull the trigger anyway because we're so mad and like losing our temper. And I definitely had a moment in my own personal life and my own personal dealings right before the day before Mars went retrograde. And I should have known better than to let this certain person trigger me, but it happened anyway. And so, sometimes like it happens. It is what it is. And you got to pick up the pieces and move on after it. But this has certainly been a Mercury retrograde to remember. And every day I wake up and I look at the news and I'm like, what is coming next, right? Like this is getting extremely wild, especially like right at the end of the year like this and leading into next year, okay? So I just wanted to drop in really quick. That's about all I have to say today. I just wanted to drop in really quick and talk to you guys about the energy and what I've been noticing and the just the wildness of the astrology. I hope that you guys will join me on my Astrology of 2025 webcast. I do have a full presentation. It's not going to be like you just looking at a page while I talk. It's definitely going to be a lot more interactive. I'm going to be on camera. I have a whole presentation prepared for it. Put a lot of work and effort into it. We're going to be talking about the wild, ravaging energy of 2025. So I hope everybody will join me for that. That'll be next Sunday, December 15th at 4:30 p.m. Come next Sunday to meet with me to talk about the astrology of 2025. And if you can't catch it, you can always catch the replay as well. But thank you once again for listening, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Take care.